Hello and welcome to Gluten-Free Test Kitchen. Today we're going to be testing two of the most popular gluten-free flour blends against each other in a cookie bake-off. So we're going to test King Arthur 1-for-1 and Bob's Red Mill 1-for-1 in a lemon melt-away cookie to see which one performs better. So these are two of the most popular gluten-free flour blends, and you are supposed to be able to just replace them in any standard recipe to make a recipe gluten-free. They are different, and one of the most common questions that you guys ask me is which gluten-free flour blend should I use? So today we're gonna put these to the test and see which one makes a better cookie. I don't think that these are completely interchangeable, and I think that most people who bake gluten-free things think that they can just pick up a bag of gluten-free flour and it's gonna work exactly the same, and it's actually not. First, we need to get into baking these cookies because I really want a cookie. If you're new here, hi, I'm Nikki. I have celiac. I've been baking and cooking gluten-free for over 10 years, and I'm sharing all of my knowledge with you in hopes that you can become a more confident gluten-free baker and cook. Okay, so the first thing that we're gonna do is we're actually going to reduce the lemon juice that we're gonna use in the gluten-free cookies, because the more moisture that you have in a gluten-free cookie, the gummier that your dough is going to be. This is because citrus is made up a lot of water, so we really just want to boil that water out and just keep the citrus flavor. So we're going to take 1/4 of a cup and reduce it down to 2 tablespoons each cookie. So I'm just going to go ahead and make 1/2 of a cup and then get 4 tablespoons of citrus out of this. We're going to combine our lemon zest and our powdered sugar. So we're going to get 2 tablespoons of lemon zest. So zest has so much flavor. And that's the reason that in a lot of baking recipes with citrus, you're going to see zest combined with the juice. But you want to make sure that whenever you're zesting something, you're just barely taking the outside of the skin off. You don't want to get the white, that's called pith, and that's going to be really bitter. So we don't want to get that in our zest. 1/3 of a cup, 2/3 of a cup. We're gonna rub together our powdered sugar and our zest, because whenever you take the zest and you rub it with your fingertips, it's gonna release more of the oil. 12 tablespoons of room temperature butter. So I just set this out last night and let it come to room temperature. Another little hack I have for whenever I forget to set my butter out is you can just put it in a bowl of warm water and it's gonna soften it right up to exactly the temperature that you want it. So now we're gonna cream together our butter, our powdered sugar, and our lemon zest. All right, so our first test is the King Arthur measure for measure. And King Arthur actually uses a white rice flour as its base. King Arthur is known for milling their flour really, really fine. So it's gonna give you a little bit more delicate crumb. One of the issues with gluten-free baking is that the flours have a hard time properly hydrating. The finer particles are gonna hydrate a little bit faster and they're gonna hold that hydration better. So you're gonna get a less gritty texture, or that's what's supposed to happen. Okay, we're gonna mix this in. Okay, while that's mixing in, we're gonna add in 1/3 of a cup of cornstarch. A 1/2 of a teaspoon of baking powder. And if I can find it, 1/2 of a teaspoon of salt. Baking powder is even more important in gluten-free baking, and you need to replace this thing at least once every 6 months, because baking powder can actually go stale and it can affect the rise of your gluten-free baking. Baking powder is so important because it's gonna make up for so much of what the gluten structure network in gluten-free baking does. So make sure that your baking powder is always fresh, and sometimes whenever you're converting a recipe from a standard gluten-full recipe to a gluten-free recipe, you might want to even increase your baking powder just a smidgen, just because it's going to have more work to do in gluten-free baked goods. All right, we're going to add in 1 egg white. Then we're going to get our 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. All right, this reduced so nicely. Perfect. These are setting beautifully. All right, these are perfect and ready. So we are going to take these and we're going to form them into equal size little balls, roll them in some sugar, press them out, and then we are going to let our dough chill, actually, so that this is fair. I'm going to make the other batch and then we'll chill the dough at the same time. There's our beautiful dough, and let's get to rolling. Let's create our little assembly line here. If you bake a lot, oh, there's my butter on the back of my parchment. That's pretty. All right, so if you bake a lot, these are literally a lifesaver. I know These are one of those, sometimes there are things in my kitchen that I have that I'm like, that really isn't necessary, but then you get it and it's like, why didn't I have that sooner? These pre-cut parchment papers for my baking pan are one of those things. So we're gonna get our cookie scooper. We're gonna make these into little balls, roll them up, roll them in some sugar. I'm using the super fine baking sugar, but you can use just regular granulated sugar. But I want these to be really delicate cookies. They're going to be like these little meltaways in your mouth. So I'm just going to use this super fine sugar.
Okay, so I'm making the Bob's Red Mill cookies exactly the same, but I want to talk a little bit about their flour. So Bob's Red Mill uses a sweet rice flour that's also called a glutinous rice flour, which is kind of confusing because it does not have any gluten, but it's stickier than regular rice flour. So it has more starches, which means that it gelatinizes at a lower speed and it creates a chewier, stickier texture. So Bob's cookies usually hold their shape a little bit better because that sticky rice flour is acting like a mild binder on top of the xanthium gum.
All right, I have both batches of cookies ready to chill. I'm gonna put these in the refrigerator at the same time and let these chill for 30 minutes before we put them in an oven preheated to 350 for 10 to 12 minutes. Okay guys, our cookies are done. They are baked. I'm gonna let them cool before I frost them. And then I'm actually headed out for the afternoon to take my kids to my mother-in-law's and I'm gonna go run some errands this afternoon, which I'm really excited about. So we're gonna test these tonight. I'm hoping that my husband doesn't come home from work and see that there are cookies here and eat them all. I'm gonna put a little sign here that says do not eat these cookies, but I'm gonna let them sit here and cool, and then I'm gonna frost them whenever I get home from my errands, and we're gonna do a taste test. Okay, we're back and we have our cookies baked, cooled, and frosted. Here's the lemon melt-away cookie made with Bob's Red Mill gluten-free 1-to-1 flour. Let's open this baby up. Break it open. Here's the inside. It's very soft. It's very delicate. It really does melt in your mouth. The flavor is really good. The texture is really good. It's a very good cookie. It really does like the melt away in your mouth. It was not chewy, not sandy, not gritty at all, which you get a lot with gluten-free cookies. It's nice and moist. It's not crumbly. It holds up really well. I feel like that's something I always want for my gluten-free cookie. Like whenever I break it apart, I want it to break nicely. I don't want it to be crumbly and feel like it's falling apart in my hand. So this is a nice, like sturdy cookie, but it has the softness that you want with a melt-away cookie. I really enjoy this cookie. This is the King Arthur's cookie. Let's get it opened up. Uh-oh. Oh, the side broke off. Okay. 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 Here is the inside of the King Arthur cookie. So on first taste, side by side, it tastes denser. There's two distinctly different flavors. I can taste the lemon more in the Bob's Red Mill. I can't taste the lemon as much. But beyond that, it's chewier. It doesn't really melt as well. And it tastes a little bit more cakey. I feel like I can taste the flour flavor a little bit more in the King Arthur. I was actually anticipating the King Arthur one to be a little bit softer because of the finer blend of the flour. So I'm really, really surprised that I feel like the King Arthur one is a little bit more dense and floury. This is really, really shocking to me. I just feel like for a melt-away cookie, it doesn't really work as well as the Bob's Red Mill. I'm actually so surprised at the difference between these two gluten-free flours. As far as which cookie is better, I'm actually really, really surprised by this result. I really thought that they were going to be more similar because I think most people think that gluten-free flours are very interchangeable and that you can just use whichever one. I'm very surprised that there is as large of a difference in these two gluten-free cookies as there is. I think the King Arthur cookie is denser, it's cakier tasting, it's a little bit more sandy, but I think that this particular flour would hold up really well in other cookie recipes. I think specifically for this melt-away cookie that we want to be a little bit more tender and lighter, I think I prefer the Bob's Red Mill. I'm actually very surprised about this. Okay, I think I'm going to have to test this flour in another cookie. Maybe I'm going to try chocolate chip, a sugar cookie, or a peanut butter cookie next. I think I'm going to have to try this test over again and see if it's the cookie or if it's the flour. Okay, comment below and let me know which cookie you want me to try next because I don't feel like I'm done with this test. I feel like I want to put these up against each other one more time and just double check and make sure that I'm going to recommend Bob's Red Mill for gluten-free cookies because I actually thought it was going to be the opposite. I'm very surprised. All right, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today and testing out the gluten-free flours. I'm gonna do this test again, I think, on some different things, breads, cookies, and just kind of see which gluten-free flour, because this is a question that you guys continuously ask me, is which gluten-free flour blend should I be using? And the answer is that they all work differently for different things, and I'm gonna test all of them to see which ones I can recommend to you, because I don't feel like I can give a good recommendation unless I've really put them up head to head like we did with these cookies. So if you're into this sort of thing, subscribe to this channel, because I have a lot of gluten-free baking knowledge that I am sharing with you, because I never want you to feel alone whenever you're trying to bake gluten-free. I know how hard and overwhelming it can be, and you shouldn't have to do it alone. So I'm sharing everything that I know and that I've learned over the last 15 years. So anyways, have a wonderful rest of your day and happy eating, friends. Bye.